Hey everyone, welcome to another iteration of the Airbyte community call. This one is a very special one. We have two awesome guests from one of our new partners, Prefect. Prefect is a is an orchestration service that we've integrated with to allow you to have greater control of your Airbyte syncs. And we have Alex and Andrew who were critical in creating all of this happen, and they were critical in getting this partnership going. They were critical in making all of the content that we've done with them happen, and they were critical in coming here today to announce this for us. And I'm really excited to let them kind of talk about this integration, what it means for the Airbyte community, how everyone can use this to kind of improve the Airbyte experience. And I don't want to take too much time away from them, but first we're going to have Andrew kind of announce the Prefect integration and announce the details about this, and then we'll have Alex give a demo about it and talks about some of the finer details. So without further ado, Andrew, take it away.
Great, Abby. Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Black. I lead partnerships here at Prefect. Alex leads integration development, and I'll let him introduce himself when he starts. So anyway, first of all, thanks everyone for being here. I'll start by saying we first heard of Airbyte, frankly, just from the chorus of excitement in our own community. We have 12,000 members in our Slack community. And they kept saying, hey, what about Airbyte? What about Airbyte? And so we said, hey, wow, this is a tool we really need to get to know and a partner we want to work with. So really excited to announce our integration and our partnership. And you know what this means is Airbyte is we launched a partnership program officially last week. Airbyte is one of 6 or 7 premier partners. What that means is that their integration is verified, what Alex and his team were able to build, so you can rely on it. And we'll be partnering in other ways too. So some go-to-market, thought leadership, and you can look for our products and our companies to work really well together. So this is mostly going to be a technical focused session. And so we want you all to learn a bit about the tools, how they work together, a bit of, maybe why you would want to use Prefect versus saying Airflow or other alternatives, and that. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Alex. I just want to say, please, in the chat, any questions that you may have or things that you want us to address, please put, and we will either address them real time or at the end of the session. So thanks everybody so much.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm a software engineer from Prefect, focusing on integrations. And I'll walk through a little bit more of the technical details of how to use Airbyte and Prefect together. And specifically, we'll be talking about how you can schedule your Airbyte syncs with Prefect. Now, I'm sure that some of you have heard about Prefect before or used Prefect before, but in case you haven't, I just wanted to go over a little bit about what Prefect is and what it can do for you. So at Prefect, our goal is to eliminate negative engineering. And we define that as the defensive code that data engineers need to write in order to make sure that they accomplish the objective that they set out when they wrote their code, be that ETL work or data transformation. And so we do that via a couple of offerings that we have. One is Prefect Core, which is our open source Python framework that you can use for actually writing data applications. And you do this by writing flows. Flows are a series of tasks that get executed, and it's written in pretty much plain Python code that you can to create your data application. But by wrapping your Python code in tasks, it allows Prefect to give you capabilities like retries, caching results between tasks to make sure that you can restart in case of infrastructure failures, and many more features. And then once you've written those flows, you can test and develop those locally using Prefect Core. But if you want to scale your operation, we offer Prefect Cloud, which is our SaaS platform for managing, orchestrating, and monitoring your data applications. So scheduling your applications, seeing upcoming executions of your flows, seeing logs, historical runs of your flows, all that can be done through Prefect Cloud. And so one space that we see Prefect and Airbyte used a lot is in ELT applications, where you want to take data from one place, put it in another place, and then run a transformation on it so that downstream applications can consume that. And Airbyte is great at extracting and loading via their sources and their destinations. You can take those and connect those together, and Airbyte will handle so much of the heavy lifting for you of syncing data between applications or databases and your data warehouse. And then dbt is great for data engineers and analysts to be able to transform that data and prepare it for use downstream. And Airbyte has a concept of syncing on a schedule. You can do it on an interval. And dbt, through their cloud offering, also has the ability to schedule transformations. But if you're using them in tandem, it can be difficult to make sure that those schedules stay in sync. It may be particularly important for your application that your Airbyte sync runs before your dbt transformation. And this is where an orchestrator is really useful. By using Prefect and creating tasks within your flow, you can specify dependencies between tasks so that you can ensure that all of your Airbyte syncs complete successfully before you run your dbt transformation. And because of the robust scheduling capabilities of Prefect as well, you have a single source of truth for your schedule between these two or multiple applications that you're using for your data pipeline. And you can do stuff with Prefect like scheduling on an interval, scheduling with a cron expression, and then writing custom rules for exceptions to the schedule as well, like saying, I don't want to run this on Cyber Monday because running this sync may take down my database while it's under high traffic. And so we've made this even easier to use Prefect and Airbyte together through an addition to the Prefect task library, which is our Airbyte connection task. So at Prefect, we have a task library that are tasks that are contributed by the community to encapsulate code that other developers can use in their data pipelines to reduce the amount of code that they have to write in order to develop their data applications. And so one that was recently developed is this Airbyte connection task, which allows you to specify a connection that you've previously configured in Airbyte and trigger it from Prefect and have Prefect wait until the execution of that sync is completed in order to continue on with other tasks in your data pipeline. And so you can use other tasks in the task library in order to build data applications. And I have a simple demo that I'll show how you can do that. But you can also write your own custom Python code to perform other actions that you might need during your data pipeline. All right, so I'm going to walk through kind of a very simple example of how you can use these together. So as part of this, we wrote a recipe in the Airbyte recipe collection of how you can use these together. And the basic problem that we were trying to solve was if we took the main repos of Prefect, Airbyte, and dbt, and using Prefect, Airbyte, and dbt, could we figure out who are the common contributors between those three repos, meaning who has a commit in all three of those repos. And so I've created a flow here in order to accomplish that. And so this is a relatively simple Prefect flow, but we're leveraging a couple of tasks from our task library in order to accomplish that. You can see here that we have our Airbyte connection task here, and tasks are Python classes, so you can interact with them like any other Python class. And so we're instantiating a instance of that class here so that we can then use it later on in our flow. We have a couple of other tasks that we're using from the task library. We're using the dbt shell task, which is a task that allows you to run dbt shell commands as part of your Prefect flow. And then we'll be using our Snowflake query task as well in order to perform the query against our Snowflake data warehouse to discover the answer to our question. And then in order to actually create a flow, we have a context manager that's part of the Prefect Core library where you say with flow, configure your flow, and then you write code in order to find your pipeline. This is using our functional API. So you can see here that we are pulling in some parameters. We're able to parameterize flows so that you can pass in data and run it in different situations, depending on the parameters that you pass in. And then we're able to run our 3 Airbyte syncs. We'll be pulling data from the Airbyte repo, the dbt repo, and the Prefect repo. Then we'll be running our dbt job. We can define here that our upstream tasks are the results of these 3 tasks right here. That will make sure that our Airbyte tasks complete before we run our dbt job. And then we can run our Snowflake queries. We can then specify the dbt task as an upstream dependency of these 2 tasks to make sure that our dbt job completes before we run our Snowflake task. And then we're going to generate some simple markdown in order to show the result of our flow. And so whenever you run Prefect, it's going to generate a DAG, which is the steps that Prefect is going to go through in order to execute your flow. And you can visualize this. So in this case, I've generated a visualization of what this flow is going to look like. And then within Prefect Cloud, so this is Prefect Cloud, I've registered this flow as a one that can be executed. And I'm also running a Prefect agent on my local machine. So whenever code is executed by Prefect, we have what is called a hybrid model, where Prefect agents are the compute that is actually executing your flow, and those are that's infrastructure that exists within your environment. And Prefect Cloud is just the orchestrator. So no data leaves your environment, which is great for applications that have sensitive data that can't leave an environment. And so by running an agent on my local machine, when I schedule this flow, it's going to run on my machine with the flow that I've written. And so for this flow, we can create a flow run. These are the parameters that need to be passed in order to run this flow. And I have my input that I'm going to give to that. Oh, let's see, I should also, should walk through the Airbyte connections that I created as well. So we have 3 connections here. You can see one's for the Airbyte GitHub repo, the dbt GitHub repo, and the Prefect GitHub repo. These were created with GitHub sources and a single Snowflake destination. And so I was able to create 3 connections for those. So these are the 3 that are going to be executed when I run my flow. So let's see, let me give my inputs to that. And so I'm going to hit run. And so when a flow is running, you can see in real time what's happening as the flow runs. The job is scheduled. The agent that's running on my machine is polling for jobs that it can execute. It'll pick that up and it'll start running my flow. And you can see these right here are the tasks that are executing as part of the flow. So this one that's running right here is our Airbyte connection task. So if we come over here to Airbyte, this Airbyte is running on my local machine. You can see that we've started with the dbt GitHub connection. So we're pulling in GitHub information for the dbt repo into Snowflake. And so that will take some time. In order to skip ahead, I'll go to a flow that completed successfully. And so you can see this is what a flow that completes successfully will look like. You'll see that the 3 Airbyte connection tasks run, and then we run our DBT shell task, which is going to be running a simple DBT model, basically to create a join between the 3 tables that we create in Snowflake and finding committers that are common between them. And then we'll be querying Snowflake and producing an artifact. So artifacts within Prefect are links or markdown that you can create in order to display some information that was created as a result of a flow run. And so you can see here, we were looking at the common committers between Prefect, Airbyte, and DBT, and then also the common issue submitters. And so I was so relieved when doing this that there actually is someone who is committed to all 3 of these repos. I wasn't sure that there would be when I started. Obviously there's Dependabot. Dependabot is all over the place. But Joel here is the one person who has contributed to all 3, which is pretty impressive. And for demo purposes, we can also look at what it looks like when a flow fails. So this is a flow where I incorrectly configured the Snowflake connection string, so it wasn't able to query from Snowflake. But you can see here, let's see. So if we look at the schematic for this flow, we can see how all of these tasks are connected. And if we click on the Snowflake query, you can see that I had retries configured for this. So even though I had incorrectly configured it, it still tried to connect an additional 2 times after the initial failure in order to make sure that it wasn't just an intermittent error from Snowflake that was causing the failed connection, which is great because then there's less debugging as a developer. It's annoying to go and see a failed flow run, just see that it was an intermittent connection error. You're going to run into those a lot. It's going to be a lot more rare if you configure retries and the like within your Prefect flow. Yeah, so overall, by leveraging Prefect and Airflow together, data engineers can really build robust data applications faster than ever before by using the best of both, Airbyte's excellent suite of connectors and the ways that it makes moving data from one place to another easy, and Prefect the way that it makes it easy to orchestrate across multiple tools, keep them in sync. You can really build some really cool stuff really fast. And so I would encourage everyone to check out Prefect Cloud. We have a very generous free tier on Prefect Cloud where you can have 20,000 successful task runs per month. So you can do a lot with that. And I would also encourage you that if you are looking at Prefect and you're looking at the task library and you see things that are missing or things that could use enhancement, please feel free to contribute so that we can all as a community benefit from that development.
Awesome, Alex. That was a really, really cool demo, really cool presentation. Just as a reminder, I know there's a question about this. You can find this exact demo example in our recipes in our recipes collection that I've linked to it in the chat. Now we can kind of open up questions for Alex and Andrew if anyone has any questions. I know this was kind of already answered, but Jonas was basically talk more about comparing Prefect and Airflow, and maybe if you were just kind of to go into some of the nuances between the differences between Prefect and Airflow, I think that would probably help a lot of the people in our community.
For sure, yeah. So Prefect's relationship to Airflow, our CEO Jeremiah used to be a contributor to Airbyte or to Airflow, and so Prefect is kind of like an Airbyte or an Airflow 2.0, and so really the main differences for a developer between Airflow and Prefect is Prefect is easier to develop with because for the most part, it is basic Python code that you need to write. And there's less coupling between kind of the distinct parts of a flow with Prefect. It's a lot easier to take tasks and put them together because of the way that Prefect passes data between tasks in a flow. And George Coyne, one of our solutions architects at Prefect, has posted a blog of very fine grain, like what the differences are between Airflow and Prefect, and why you would use Prefect over Airflow. And I would recommend reading that because that blog post is going to go into far more detail than I'm able to go into right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I believe the blog post was linked in the chat. Cool. If there are
I'm happy. I'll be maybe. Oh, I'll just add a couple things to that. I think we did a user survey recently to ask this very question. Why do you love it? We get people joining the Slack, I think literally every day, saying, "I'm so happy I discovered Prefect. This is so amazing." And there are 4 big things that we heard. So the first is, as Alex saying, it's so fast and easy to use. You saw Alex just using his local dev machine. There's no infrastructure to set up, right? You can just get going immediately, download core and go. It's so intuitive, right? Because it is just Python. The cloud interface that you saw him present, it truly is intuitive, right? It makes a lot of sense immediately. It's really, really well visualized, and simplicity, I think, of that cloud UI is something we've gotten really good feedback on, and was one of our product missions. It's also just super capable. So as you read that Airbyte blog, go into look at how we do scheduling, right? Capabilities like parameterization, really dig in. There are a lot of things you're going to be able to do with Prefect that you might either not be able to do with alternatives or find a little bit more difficult. And the final thing I'd mentioned before is our community. For those of you not in our community, I think George Coyne, who's on our team, shared it. Please join. It's a really terrific community. We have 12,000 people. Hard to keep track. It's growing so much. But it's a really positive community. Our average response time, if anybody asks a question, is 4 minutes. And so, any support that you need, we are here. We really back this product, and we want everybody to have a great experience. So kind of the high level pitch, but we'd love people to try it out as well.
Awesome. So there's one more question. So we got Peter Kotvitsky, who asks, if using Prefect Cloud, how easy is it to migrate compute infrastructure to another environment? Example, moving agents from local machines to EC2.
Yeah, so it's not difficult at all. So for the most part, when an agent spins up, it goes and you register it with Prefect Cloud, and then it pulls for flows that can be executed by that agent. And so there are several strategies for storage with Prefect. And when we say storage, we mean the actual code for the flow where it's stored so that it can be executed. We offer Docker storage within S3, storage within a Git repo. And so the code that runs as part of the flow is sort of separated from the compute in that way. And so when you register a flow, you tell Prefect Cloud where that code is hosted. And the agent is then responsible for retrieving that code and executing it. So if you've used a strategy like Git storage or Docker storage, then regardless of where the agent is running, it's able to get that code and execute it, which is part of why running with Prefect is so robust. And so we've got guides on how to create agents within a Kubernetes cluster, how to run agents on ECS and EC2. And so managing a fleet of agents is relatively simple for that reason.
Awesome. Yeah, and Peter did ask another question, but I think this was answered. But I will ask it for posterity. Are there plans to do an Orion demo at some point?
So we have had some live streams for Orion. Orion is in technical preview right now, so it's still being built out. But there are, in terms of like interacting with Airbyte and Prefect 2.0 or Orion, definitely at some point we'll be taking tasks from our current task library and migrating them so that they will function with Prefect 2.0. And at that point, we can definitely update what it would take in order to run Airbyte with Orion. But at this point, Orion is in technical preview, and there's still ongoing development with that.
Cool, that makes sense. I guess I have a question. I guess from the use cases that you've seen, what do you think? Like, I know you mentioned a few things. You mentioned like the Black Friday, like being able to like I guess very like easily control when your jobs take place, and like what would you say is like what would you say are kind of like the big use cases like outside of that for like using the Prefect platform, and what do you like? What are like some of the features that maybe like that people wouldn't really think about when I guess thinking about an orchestration platform that might be really nice to have?
So one thing that's also really nice about, there are a couple of things that are really nice about Prefect Cloud. One is kind of, it's got a batteries included feel with it. So we have a couple of services that are offered as part of Prefect Cloud, one being key value store. So between flows, you may need to maintain some state between flows, keep a cursor to data so that you're fetching only updated data on each flow run. And that's something that's easy to consume and update from a Prefect flow. It's part of the Prefect Cloud API. We also have secrets management as part of Prefect Cloud, so that you can safely store credentials for APIs or databases that you need to interact with via Prefect. And we also have automations that you can run via Prefect Cloud that's relatively advanced, where you can say like, if this flow fails, send me a Slack message or trigger this webhook, which is great for integrating with other systems that you may use as well.
Awesome. That definitely answers my question. So Peter's one last question. My last question is Prefect capable of creating tasks on the fly? Example, depending on the number of detected S3 files in a folder, and executing up to hundreds or 100 tasks of tasks created in such a way in a single run.
Yeah, so the answer to that would be yes. So within Prefect, there's the capability of mapping across data. So if you have a list, you can map so that you run one task for each item in that list. And in addition to that, we also have an integration with Dask, where you can like either run a local ephemeral Dask or run against a Dask cluster, so that if you map in that way, you can actually run them in parallel. And so that can be an excellent way to like in parallel run through a lot of data at once.
Cool. So we're just running up on time here. If there are any other questions for the Prefect team, we're going to be creating a thread in the Airbyte community. Also, make sure to go check out the Prefect community. We've linked it in the Slack. It's just prefect.io/Slack. You just go ahead there, like as Andrew mentioned, lots of wonderful people, like really quick response time. Very similar to Airbyte in how we operate. We we definitely like partnering with people that kind of have the same vision as us and the same values. So definitely, we're definitely like interested in co-supporting the community. So Thank you so much, Andrew and Alex, for coming on the call. This was really awesome, really cool information, and I look forward to seeing what a lot of people can do with I guess, the synergy of the Airbyte and Prefect platforms.
Thanks, Abby. I appreciate
much,
it.
Abby.
And yeah, everybody, please do share back in our respective communities. I think we each have our areas of, show us what you got. Please do that, right? This is a relatively new task. We'd love to see what you're creating. And we can help you along the journey as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone.